following program is sponsored by Team Reba of Remax Metro East Side and Eric Osnes of Homebridge Financial Services. Welcome to Open House with Team Reba. Each week, Team Reba will be bringing you a roundup of real estate and mortgage news, along with information about the local Puget Sound region, highlighting some of the best and brightest entertainment options, family events, neighborhood highlights, and local business interviews, so you can feel right at home in the Pacific Northwest.
Welcome once again to Open House with Team Reba. I'm Reba Haas of Team Reba, Remax Metro East Side.
And I'm Eric Osnes from Homebridge Financial Home Mortgage. What are you laughing at?
I'm sorry I'm laughing. I need to sometimes not look at my stuff before we get on air.
Oh, boy.
Well, no, because I just had a reminder about, well, you were here with me doing a Facebook Live while I was recording some new ads for my company that are played on this station.
I gave you some good ideas.
You did. And I was just getting a message from somebody on one of the online dating things, and it just made me think about made me think about the ads and how funny they are and how real and painfully true in some cases.
Oh, no.
Sorry. I'm having a good day. I'm just having a good day. I'm in a good mood, but I'm also just cracking up at some stuff. So anyway, never mind me. How's life over in the mortgage world,
I tell you what, they're doing just fine. We're keeping super busy. I was just thinking about, every time we have a long weekend, and it'll be pretty sparse between coming up onto Thanksgiving.
What do you mean sparse?
We don't have any big holidays.
Oh, big holidays. Okay, I thought I was going to say I don't know about
you go Labor
definitely
Day.
Definitely got plenty of work.
But I mean Labor Day, and then the next big one's Thanksgiving.
Well.
I mean,
you got Halloween, but that's not really like a day off. That's just which now. Oh, Halloween's going to bite this year.
Yeah,
I hadn't even thought about it. Thanks a lot
kitties,
for that.
How are they going to be doing any trick-or-treating?
Right.
Yeah. Well, they'll have to.
That's going to be a whole new
leave something
thing
out on the porch, maybe.
I guess. Yeah, contactless candy pickup. I mean,
I don't know.
Like someone rings the doorbell, you put a couple pieces that. Oh,
they're outdoors.
Oh well,
it's outside. You know what? So that's good.
Maybe we should ask our listeners to send in their ideas for how we should handle Halloween this year. Wouldn't that be fun? And we could share them on air.
Sure.
Seriously.
See how creative we can get?
Yeah, let's see how creative our listeners are. Yeah. info@teamreba.com. Send in your suggestions for Halloween and how we can handle it this year.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you can do it like a virtual happy hour. What are you going to do? Have a bunch of kids in a room and they're just like eating candy in front of each other?
There's your virtual candy. Yeah, that's gonna go well. Besides, if the kids, and parents, you know what I'm talking about, if the kids don't have candy from trick-or-treating, what are you going to do? How are you going to sneak in their rooms and take their candy?
Okay, the parents can still just go buy it.
Well, it's not the same. Yeah, it's not the same. Not nearly as fun.
You're a candy thief? Is that what you're admitting to here?
My household. No, it wasn't me, but in our household, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was that candy would sort of disappear in the middle of the night.
I will say one of my friends for Easter, it was famous in her household that the rabbit's ears would go missing every year on the chocolate bunnies. So funny.
That's the best meme out there, the chocolate rabbit. And there's a bite out of his tail end and his ears are missing. And the one rabbit says, "My butt hurts." The other one says, "What?"
Thanks for that visual. Okay. Moving on. So we have all these, distance holidays. And of course, remembering that legal holidays for Thanksgiving are like a Thursday and a Friday, right? Mm-hmm. So be paying attention to your contracts when you get around to that time if you happen to be somebody who's in there. Yep. However, I think you're bringing that up for a reason because you had before, I know we're doing this post Labor Day and all that kind of stuff, but you and I both had a lot of folks kind of asking for some things right before the long weekend.
Oh, I always joke about it because I'm always wondering when we come up on a busy weekend, a 3-day weekend, or really almost any weekend for that matter, who is it going to be that calls me at 6:30 Friday night saying, "Oh, remember we talked, 2 months ago and about maybe me buying a home. And now I found the perfect home and I'm ready to go and I need an approval letter like right now." And it happens every year and it's usually before a 3-day week. And this year there were two, that kind of hit me about 6:30 and 7 o'clock, Friday night.
Of course.
And,
hey, at least it wasn't me.
Right. Oh, no,
Usually you complain about me.
I joke about you. I mean, you actually, every now and then I just call you on Friday night. It's like, you haven't
What's
called
wrong?
yet.
Are you okay? Are you out of town?
Exactly.
Are you breathing?
I bring it up because, I
At least if I call you, I know that they've already been pre-approved. And I'm like, we found the house. I need a new letter.
No problem. Takes me just a few minutes and I can kind of get that taken care of. Well, you see, and with a pre-approval, with a mortgage pre-approval, what I like to have, and I know what you like, is a fully underwritten loan.
Yes.
Meaning it's not just my opinion. I haven't just kind of punched some numbers into an automated system. I'm not standing in front of a house with my smartphone thinking I've got a full-blown loan approval. We actually verify employment, verify income. We run credit. We look at assets. And one of our loan underwriters actually issues a loan commitment, which is binding. It's binding to us as the lender. It's not binding to the borrower. I mean, they could still shop around if they want. But that carries so much more power and strength when you're making an offer. And so when I get the call at 6:30 on a Friday, it's like, am I fully underwritten? And it's like, well, no, my friend, you never sent me the documents I asked for, and you never filled out the disclosures that we gave you 2 months ago. No.
They just think since they did certain parts that it's...
Well, it's kind of denial a little bit on that. But
yeah, no, I get that.
A little planning can go a long way because, if you are fully underwritten and then you find the right home, and if there's 6 or 7 people, fighting for that same home, but you're the only one that's fully underwritten,
good listing agents know the value of that. And they're like, I'm really happy to hear you say that. Those are words that are music to my ears.
Absolutely.
Because it makes a difference. Good listing agents, we go out and we verify all that stuff. We call those lenders and ask.
Well, I call them. I mean,
you're usually good about that, but I'm saying a listing agent, because not all you and I both know this, not everybody does what you do. And if there's multiple offers, you can't have done them all. So, that's the whole thing. Is like a good listing agent is going to go check.
Right. Absolutely.
Right? I mean, if you ever ended up with a different real estate agent, and shame on you if you do.
That'd be bad.
I'm kidding. No. If you showed up on one of my transactions and I was on the listing agent side, I would at least know, like, this is a good one.
Well, and fortunately for me, having been lending forever, that happens to me. So we'll make an offer, and
you're well known, well regarded.
If I know the listing agent, they're like, oh, okay, well, I'm taking the deal with Eric, because I know that thing's going to close.
Right, exactly.
Which I love.
Yeah, which is why I also have a great close rate, because you and I work together on so many transactions. I have a question for you though.
Yeah. Because
you're talking about the full underwrite, which totally get. We talk about it all the time. We support it on the show constantly. Appraisal waivers. Now, before you jump into an answer, before I even ask the question, okay, because you're about to, I have a scenario that I need to ask you about.
Okay.
There is another lender out there that had a conversation with me about one of my clients, because, they were going with their big bank because they already have accounts there where they're seen in a certain light.
Sure.
Okay. Kind of what I'm talking about.
I do.
Our listeners who've been with us for a while might know what I'm talking about. But basically, I'd had a conversation in advance with this lender contact, who, by the way, happens to be in Texas. So the customers out here, they're dealing with somebody all the way out in Texas, right? Doesn't know anything about our marketplace, know nothing.
Right. Closing costs are way different too.
And I'm talking, I could tell you on some of the quotes I've seen, I'm like, oh, that insurance is way off.
Yep.
And so we were having this conversation where I was asking about appraisal waivers, because there are some people still doing appraisal waivers on their multiple offer bids. And I was asking, I've got a client with a very large amount of down payment. They're looking for around $1 million. They've got $300,000 potential if they want to use that much. And I was talking to him about, what do you think about appraisal waivers? And at the time, he told me, well, if you just send me the address of the property and what you think you're going to, have the offer at, I can let you know whether or not it's going to qualify in our system.
Yeah, that is a possibility.
Okay, but here's my thing. I have one conversation with him about it where he tells me these things and says, email me addresses. And lo and behold, 2 weeks go by. We're in a multiple offer situation, and I email him the address, and say, hey, I need to know for competitive reasons. And he's like, oh, we can't do that. If I give you anything off just one address, then I have to redo their entire file.
Well, that is true too.
And he said, so I won't do it. I'm like, but
then
2 weeks ago,
why'd you tell me you would?
2 weeks ago, you just told me. And I'm like,
yeah. So
distill that down for our listeners, please, in 2 minutes.
It's a compliance thing. So as a lender, what can happen with an appraisal waiver is we run the loan through a system through either Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. It only works for conventional loans,
right,
and loans that are within the conforming limits. King, Snohomish, Pierce County, that's loans under $741,000. So if we've got that, usually it requires at least about a 10% down payment or more. And if the borrower's got good credit and our financial ratios and everything are okay, and if the Fannie Mae or the Freddie Mac system has a sufficient database on the property address where they can kind of reasonably estimate the fair market value of the home, it'll give us a waiver. To do that, we have to input the address that person is correct into the system. Yeah. Once we do that, now we have triggered RESPA, the Real Estate Settlement and Procedures Act. As a lender, now we are required to disclose on that property. Once we disclose, we can't change the address. So if the borrower decides to pass on that home and maybe buy something else, we'd have to cancel that loan and start a new one. So it's
what's it cost you?
It's 20 minutes.
So it's time, not money.
It's time.
So here's the thing.
I mean, it's a little bit of money because
that client's writing a backup offer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're writing a backup offer.
Right.
So I need to know so that for the contract, like this seller is willing to sign this contract, that if the first deal fails, my guy goes directly in.
Yeah.
So I kind of need to know whether or not I can't write the contract.
Right.
If you can't do it, bozo, so I'm like, bozo, by the way, being the beginning of some of the acronyms for that company.
We're using radio terminology here. So we're going to have more radio terminology in just a minute. We've got more Open House with Team Reba coming right up. Stay tuned.
Open House with Team Reba on AM 1590. The Answer. Now, back to Open House with Team Reba.
Welcome back to Open House with Team Reba. I'm Eric Osnes from Homebridge Financial Home Mortgage.
And I'm Reba Haas from Team Reba.
We're here every Saturday from 2 to 3 o'clock, bringing information on real estate and finance. And Sundays.
From 3 to 4. And on podcast all the time.
Stitcher, Spotify,
iTunes, Ask Alexa, whatever your favorite is.
That's right.
And frankly, just go on in and subscribe and leave a review if you like.
Listen to them all. We have 5 years of content now, coming up on our 5th anniversary for Open House with Team Reba.
In fact, you know what I've been doing lately? Picking particular shows out for staff who need to learn on subject matter.
It's a great idea.
And seriously, I told because we have these conversations like, well, you're busy and this, you're out doing appointments. I'm like, yeah, because it's my job. And I'm like, however, there is 5 years, there's 190-ish shows you can listen to and learn, like online learning all the time, available whenever you like. You can.
That's right.
In fact, I actually had to tell one of these staffers, I'm like, will you just pick one show? I know how much time you have to commute. Pick one show a day.
Yeah, just listen.
Just listen to it.
Yeah.
Like, do you know how much and the reason why I say that is because you and I have been getting phone calls from listeners, and this blows me away. We've been getting phone calls from listeners, and we thank you very much also for taking the time to listen. But I'm laughing because I got a phone call and the woman's telling me, my daughter's in real estate. I tell her every week to make sure she gets on and listens to your show.
Oh, big shout out to Susan. Thank you, Susan, for listening.
I'm flattered, but also slightly disturbed.
No, that's a good
I mean,
thing.
because the shows are for consumers. I mean, I guess if there's some, I have had other real estate agents tell me that they listen to the show and they're like, oh yeah, I learned a lot of stuff.
Likewise, yeah.
I'm like, well, I guess training for free. All these other companies out there who aren't getting their people.
The thing is,
because I've been doing a lot of training lately. There's a lot of new people in the industry, and there is a lot of training going on the job. I can't tell our listeners enough. Please interview your people ahead of time. I can't tell you how many times I've had to explain a form, explain a process. It's frustrating because I'm like, and you're getting paid the same as me, and you don't know anything. Mm-hmm. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
Beyond belief.
Right.
But,
Well, you're the focal point of it, too, because, in every real estate transaction, somebody has to move that thing forward. There's not like a manager that takes
there's
over
no project
a transaction
management
who's like watching is everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing. It usually falls upon either a particular real estate agent in the transaction or the lender.
Right. And that's why I laugh and told you to change that slide in our classes because before it used to put the escrow officer in the center of everything. I'm like, they barely call anyone.
Yeah,
Well, I shouldn't say that. Let me retract that.
Lately. Yeah.
They do, but they're only interacting with certain persons over certain content, not the same stuff that you and I are doing.
That's right.
So I was like, no, we need to be more in the center of that diagram. And speaking of that, though, classes.
Right. Well, let's talk about that. But even just before the break, I mean, we're talking about the folks that at the last minute they want the approval letter and everything.
Yeah.
Well, along with that, this planning, this preparation. If you're thinking about buying a home, save your documents. Don't throw away your bank statements. Don't, make sure you know where your W-2s are. Make sure you can get hands on your pay stubs, your tax returns.
Yeah, how to download the PDF files of your statements,
all that sort of
that
stuff.
Yeah.
I want to teach a class on how to take a clear picture of a document with your smartphone or to use some of the scanning tools that are out there. Because we spend a lot of time, with the photo that's taken at a 45-degree angle and like a candlelit dinner table or something. I don't know. But as a lender, we have to be able to use these documents. So
I shouldn't be laughing because I know your pain.
you can save yourself a whole bunch of trouble by just just a basic thing. You hold it over the thing, make sure there's no shadows on it. It's clear. Don't wiggle your hand when you're taking the picture, but
not to necessarily push an app. We use Tiny Scanner Pro.
Yes,
it's worth a couple of bucks to be able to use that, and
Absolutely.
It will create PDF documents of your stuff.
Yes,
and it's awesome.
Yeah, there's a few out, and that's a really good one.
Yeah,
but
just my personal favorite. They're not getting. Well, I'm not getting paid to say that.
Little things like that. If you want your transaction to go smoothly, documents got to be clear. Bank statements, you got to have all the pages. If the statement says page 1 of 6, we need all 6. And a lot of customers will give us a screenshot, from off their phone of like a summary of accounts, things. We can't really use those. It's got to be the actual statements. It's super easy to do those online, but sometimes it just takes a little bit of talking through. So sometimes I feel like I'm running a computer class. I had one client where it took us an hour, but we got an email forwarded, and I was so happy about that, but we managed to get the documents that we needed. And, but all these things are going to come up when you're buying a home and oftentimes even selling a home. You just got to be prepared for that. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I also just put a shout out for, please note when someone asks you to reply all to a message.
Oh,
I have that happen so often where I'm like, there's 5 people on here. Please make sure that you reply all so everybody knows the answer. And then you get just the one to you. And you're like, okay, let me spend a few minutes forwarding this to everybody else that was on there. We were trying to save time and it didn't quite work. But that's okay.
I want to mention one other thing also. Because of COVID, there's been some extra rules added into the lending requirements, and they especially impact self-employed. I've talked about this a little bit in some previous shows. If you are self-employed, you will be asked now for a year-to-date profit and loss statement.
Yes.
And it's got to be within the most recent 30 days. On top of that, you'll also be asked for 3 months of your business bank statements. And lenders are required right now. It's not the lender's policy. It's above us. But we're going to look at the deposits into those bank accounts and just kind of reconcile, do those deposits sort of sync up with the income that we're using to qualify you? And this can be a real challenge right now for a lot of businesses.
Okay, so where my question is going to go, how are they handling when people have gotten the PPPs as well as the EIDL, like the emergency loans?
The PPP, payroll protection plan is not considered income. It's money that you borrowed. I mean, it's a bank account, it's a deposit, but it's not regular income. It's not regular business
not
activity.
income. But if it was during the time that businesses were being financially impacted,
right,
and then maybe they also qualified for the EIDL, like how are they?
We would treat
looking at all
as
that?
a lender, we would treat like any other loan that you've taken out. However, both of those programs are not requiring monthly payments. You're not going to repay those. So we're not hitting you for a monthly payment on them, but we're also not counting that money as income.
Right. Okay.
So it's just
good to,
kind of
this is, I think people are going to want to know.
Absolutely. And there are,
because self-employment loans are still out there. I mean, here's the difference, listeners. Back during the housing crisis, 2007 to 2010, roughly, employment loans went away in like end of October, early November of 2007, and they didn't show up again for 5 years.
That's right.
And we're in another economic crisis right now of a different kind, but yet they still exist. And so that's an important distinction.
Well, this is a huge thing, and thank you, our government, for doing that.
Yes.
Because that has kept many, many businesses alive.
Right.
During this pandemic. So there are conditions for those, and if you follow them, they'll be forgiven. You won't have to repay them.
Yep.
So it's a pretty incredible,
certain kinds,
incredible deal, actually. When you think about it.
Yeah.
So if you're self-employed, just be prepared. There's going to be some extra steps. But
nice.
we will be looking at your bank statements. So, we're looking at the deposits, what's going in, what's going out, and that's new. That's something that lenders have never had to worry about before. So don't be surprised if you get asked for that.
Oh, no. I just had another bad thought. Well, no, because I know some people get really up in arms about stuff like that, and they start getting very irritated. Like they take it very personally. I was like, you know what? You don't get mad at the guy who gives you the colonoscopy. So, just sorry. It feels like that when you're going through it, but
right.
You're a friendly dude. You're just trying to do your job, right?
Well,
you're just trying to get through the stuff.
Just a little preparation, just like the colonoscopy, a little bit of preparation up front. That thing will go a lot easier.
It's a lot smoother.
Yeah. That's right.
At the end of the day, you're just glad it's over with, and at least you know something.
You just reminded me to schedule something for my 10-year follow-up on all of that, every 10 years. And last time I made the doctor sign an affidavit that he didn't find my head up there, so I thought that was pretty good.
I don't think your brother believes him, regardless of whether or not you have that paper.
No, he just wants, and I do too. I just want to know who put my pants back on.
Oh my gosh.
I just woke up and it's like I got my pants on, so that was pretty interesting. So. Anywho,
we're
what that
moving
has
on.
to do with real estate?
Oh my gosh, I don't know, but oh goodness. Okay, were we going to give our class dates? I don't think we did.
We did not yet.
Okay, so we mentioned this on another show because we've been holding off because of the pandemic and everything else.
Yep.
We've been trying to decide: are we going to wait till they can allow us to do it in person? Because we do a great in person class, but we're finally just saying, you know what? Let's just bypass all that. And here's the benefit. We've always been restricted by location before. So the benefit, like a lot of other businesses and such right now, is that anybody who can qualify for the Washington State Housing Finance Commission programs and is interested in learning about them can attend. I think we'll probably have a limit on the number of people we'll have as attendees. But unlike other classrooms that we have where there's a 10 to 25 person limit, we can go well beyond that here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So the dates that we have on it right now are October 13th and 14th. So that's a Tuesday and a Wednesday. And we're doing two 2-hour segments. So from 4:30 to 6:30 on
So
Tuesday
you got to
and
take
Wednesday.
both.
Yes,
gotta
you
go
have to do
days.
both to get the certificate. It's required. The second one is on Saturday, November 14th from 10 to 2 p.m. We'll be going straight through on that. Okay. So we do have to prove that you've been there through the entire thing for you to get your certificate. The certificate is 2 years. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that really means. I know we've talked about this class several times on here, but we'll give kind of like the concept of how we're going to be setting it up so that people can get the true content, benefit from that, and then go out and find their dream home.
There you go.
Okay, so we're going to talk about that as soon as we get right back after this segment of advertisers, and we'll be right back with more of Open House with Team Reba. Thanks for listening.
Open House with Team Reba on AM 1590. The Answer. Now, back to Open House with Team Reba.
Welcome back to Open House with Team Reba. I'm Eric Osnes from Homebridge Financial Home Mortgage.
And I'm Reba Hess from Team Reba.
Did I just steal your thunder?
You totally stole my...
Oh, I thought we were
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. Maybe not.
Well,
sometimes we
our
get so caught
listeners won't
up.
know. Yeah.
Sometimes we get so caught up on.
Yeah, we do.
Talking
It's
in
where
between
are we?
breaks.
What day is it? Where am I? Yeah, that's right.
Well, okay. What I do know is that because we were just talking about the classes.
Yeah.
So do you want to give like a little bit of an idea of how we're going to split that 2-day version of the class?
Sure. And this is the official first-time homebuyer class, which is sponsored by the Washington State Housing Finance Commission. So this is the official class, but we do not.
It's not the class,
follow,
but it's.
We do not. That's called Butt Monkey. We do not follow the official first-time homebuyer class PowerPoint.
We don't follow anything official.
No, we don't. Ours is far more interesting, as you can probably surmise from this show today. That we go deep into life skills, things that you need to know about managing your credit and about qualifying and about the real estate process and what you need to know to avoid making some big and costly and dumb mistakes.
Yes.
That's the whole point of this class is to get you educated.
Avoid the heinous mistakes.
We're about the education. We really, really, truly are.
Yeah.
And we
may not always sound educated, but I still love wearing that T-shirt you got me of Faber.
Oh,
Faber College, where knowledge is good.
Knowledge is good. Yeah. One of my favorite movies.
Yeah,
Animal
absolutely.
House, if anybody. I also have a Callahan Auto Parts T-shirt, too, which is from Tommy Boy, another one of my favorite movies. So
I believe
that gives you an idea of the genre that I'm interested in.
Yes.
So this class, the way we're going to do this on it's going to be Tuesday and Wednesday, October 13th and 14th. It's going to run from 4:30 to about 6:30, and we can extend that on if there's questions and things like that, of course. So the first day on the 13th, we're going to get into the finance end of it, qualifying guidelines and credit and things you need to know about cash required to close. We'll talk about special programs that will allow you to buy a home with zero down or pretty close to zero down. We're going to talk about PMI, mortgage insurance, that's required when you have less than a 20% down payment, and different ways to structure that. If we actually take...
It sounds fascinating so far.
It is. Hey, it is. Oh,
I know
believe
it
me.
sounds dry, but we make it interesting.
It's not. Yeah, that's the thing. We always have so many questions about that. So we'll kind of wrap that up on the 13th, and then on Wednesday the 14th, Reba's going to talk about the real estate process.
Yes.
And I know that sounds boring, but that will not be.
It's everything HGTV never taught you.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah.
Like critical thinking skills about when you're buying a house.
Like not fake. Yeah.
Yes. How to look beyond the photos. How to know what to look for in inspections.
That's right.
All those kinds of things. And the process itself. And that there's this thing called a legal contract with deadlines that you need to follow.
With a good smattering of some horror stories thrown in there.
Love the smattering.
Yep,
yes.
That's right. That's right. So this class, we have so many folks that have taken this class over the years. And I know for Reba, you've been teaching that with me for
17 years? Something like that. Yeah, I'm 18 years in the business now.
I think I've been teaching it over 20 years.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of customers that they'll actually we're working on our second generation. They're saying their kids to take the class.
Yes.
And
we have two generations that sometimes come together to the class.
do.
It's pretty awesome. I love it.
It's pretty fun. Yeah. Got the older ones yelling at the younger ones. You need to do this. And let's get going. So I want you out of the house.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yes. We've had multiples of those kinds of things, along with, there's one gentleman in particular, his son's a veteran.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And right now, if there's not veterans who are, or just active military going for it, oh my gosh, we have so much military around here. Come on.
It's the greatest program ever. Zero
It's
down.
amazing.
Interest rates in the mid twos.
Yeah.
Twos.
Yeah. It's nutso.
It's no PMI. Yeah, I mean
that alone is such a tremendous savings. Holy cow!
Love working with our veterans.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
That's a good thing. Which just
I just took a class that was focused on working with veterans because I've worked with veterans for 18 years.
Yeah,
but as I'm doing some of my CE credits, and so I just had a renewal in August for my birthday.
Yeah,
and one of the classes I took was specifically around working with military and just like learning a lot more about how they
acronyms
and like someone's an E5 versus like an E7 and all this other kind of stuff. So it was very interesting and eye opening because I know a lot about it, but this actually gave me a bit more context, which I thought was very, very useful.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Essentially, if you are a veteran or even if you're active military, if you've been in the service for more than 90 days, you're going to be eligible for zero down VA financing. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely worth checking out. And if you are a veteran and have any service-related disability, VA will waive their funding fee, which is over 2% of the loan amounts typically financed, but that's a fantastic thing. And recently a bill was also passed called the U.S. Navy Blue Water Act, which if you are active military and have a Purple Heart, your VA funding fee will be waived.
Yep.
So some wonderful, wonderful programs.
Yes, absolutely.
So, anyway, so we'll talk about those in our online class as well. As long as we have folks that, if you're a veteran and we've got the interest for that, we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, if we have people who qualify for it, absolutely we will.
That's right. And if you prefer to just do a one day class, that's November 14th. That's a Saturday. It's going to run from 10 to 2 p.m. Mm-hmm. So Reba, how do people register if they're interested?
Please send an email to info@teamreba.com. And just, we need to have your name, we need a cell phone number and an email address for you. And that's for all the parties that you're going to have attending. Because if you're in a couple, if you're going to qualify for some of these programs, you both need to be in attendance. Mm-hmm. And so we need each of your contact information. And that's one of the things is we are required to still meet the state requirements, which is your contact information. We will be sending out documents that you have to fill out that the state will ask for back that has some of your information. But the other thing is that because we're going to do this in like a Zoom webinar format, we will need you to be on screen the whole time. Mm-hmm. You can't say, hi, I've got 2 people from my household coming and only one of you is on camera.
Right.
Like we need to know that you're both there. Mm-hmm. So the state does require us to monitor and make sure. So usually when Eric's talking, I have to be there and, I'm always checking. Mm-hmm. Yep. Doing all that kind of stuff. And then, and also we both fill in a little bit of information too. Some of the scenarios that we provide during the class require us to interact together during that. And then same thing, because the next day, if you're doing the 2-day class, Eric's got to be on there too. While I'm doing all of my piece of it, he's going to be checking to make sure that everybody's still staying on camera and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
So, but we're really kind of excited because this is a whole new way for us to do this because, our listenership is a fairly broad area around here in the Puget Sound area. And this is an opportunity that if you've ever felt restricted by your location and, the distance to go to where one of our classes has been,
right,
we no longer have that. Now it's just, can you get into a Zoom call, which you can do by phone or laptop or whatever device that you're using. And it's super easy. So as we have people signing up, we will be sending out then the login information so that you'll have it for attending on that day.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be fun. This will be interesting. So
yes. Thankfully, you and I will be testing this beforehand.
Well, this isn't our first rodeo. You and I have sat through a gazillion different Zoom calls and things like that. So it'll be somewhat similar.
We're going to try and remove that element that, everyone's done enough Zoom calls, I think, nowadays, that hopefully we won't have the same issues that I have on some of my
That's right.
conference calls where I'm like, so there's almost always someone having trouble connecting and, whatever. But hopefully we will not run into those issues. But we will, as we get closer to the dates and have signups, we will check to see kind of what our maximum capacity can be.
Sure.
We don't have a restriction by area right now, but we may have to say, hey, we need to cut off by X amount for just paperwork and seeing what Zoom can handle from a technology standpoint.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. Well,
Okay.
I'm sure we'll be fine for all of that.
Yes.
Should be fun.
Yes. So I know you mentioned, not that this is a direct segue, but one of the things that I brought in that I wanted to talk about on the show, I know you were talking about like military and perhaps anyone who's gotten a Purple Heart or had an issue during service.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about how that's a little bit of a segue into one of the things I wanted to bring up, which is service animals.
Yeah.
Because we know that on occasion, maybe people aren't flying as much as they were, but pre-pandemic, there was a bunch of people, making jokes about the, service animals on planes and the horses and the peacocks and the, like ridiculousness that it was getting to with some of that. But when it comes to real estate, the American Disabilities Act does still have, a need to make sure that, landlords are thinking about service animals. And I don't think we've ever broached this topic directly on
Not
the
really.
show.
I don't think so.
Right?
No.
So again, while I was saying I was having to do a bunch of CE credits before my renewal in August, one of the ones that came up was talking about the ADA and service animals and how they fit into the real estate world. So it starts off with like, definition of a service animal. What is a service animal? And according to this document that comes from the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, Disability Rights Section, it's under the ADA, a service animal is defined as a dog that has been individually trained to do work or perform tasks for an individual with a disability. The task or tasks performed by the dog must be directly related to the person's disability. And so then it starts getting into a lot of the things that then people are like, well, what's that mean exactly? What does do work or perform tasks mean? And so that might be, say somebody with diabetes has a dog that's trained to alert them when their blood sugar reaches a high or a low level. It might be for somebody with depression that has a dog trained to remind them to take medication. Another example is a person with epilepsy that has a dog trained to detect the onset of a seizure and helps get them to a safe place. Right. So those are some of the examples. It's not the only ones, but they are some of the examples. They do not count emotional support, therapy, comfort, or companion animals as service animals under the ADA. Okay. So that's a big difference. So
But you're also not allowed to ask. You can't say, what is your medical situation? I mean, that violates HIPAA. So you got to be careful about
this
that.
document. I'm going to recommend, especially if you're a landlord, I'm going to recommend that you go to this website. That it's ada.gov on the website, and you can find this directly to get this. But we're going to talk about this more when we get back from these messages here on Open House with Team Reba, and we'll be talking service animals.
Open House with Team Reba on AM 1590. The Answer. Now, back to Open House with Team Reba.
Welcome back to Open House with Team Reba. I'm Reba House of Team Reba, Remax Metro East Side, out of order.
There you go. And I'm Eric Osnes from Homebridge Financial Home Mortgage.
Who's definitely out of order.
I'm always out of order.
Oh, my gosh. So funny. So, yeah, we're talking service animals here.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because right before we went into the break, you said, or during the break, you're like, oh, you can't ask. You can't ask somebody. And that's what's so great about this document because it helps you know exactly what you can and cannot do.
Right. So the thing you can't ask is like, oh, what's wrong with you? Yeah, that would be one.
Yeah, no. You can't. No, you can't outright ask a question like that.
Some of the things that, but the words that come out of the mouths of people or real estate agents sometimes frightens me.
Right. I totally get it.
You got to be so careful about that.
But see, here's the thing. Now, so it's also situational dependent, right? Because one of the other things is I just said no therapy, comfort, support animals are not considered service animals under the ADA. However, remember there's all these different levels of government, right? So the thing is, you now have to be just aware of, well, where are you?
Yeah.
Because some state and local governments have laws that say, hey, emotional support animals are allowed in this public space, right? So you have to check, right? You can't just be like, oh, well, over there it's that, so it must be this way here. Like, you got to know, right? It's kind of like fair housing. Fair housing has completely different rules across different parts of the nation.
Right.
Like we have some of the strictest here in terms of, I shouldn't say strictest, we have the most groups who are covered under fair housing, right? Protected classes, they like to call it.
I think the best way to think about it is a service animal is not a pet. They're not a companion.
Exactly.
They're doing a job.
Yes.
And even when you're renting a property out, if your tenant has a service animal, you're not allowed to collect extra fees or deposits for that animal.
Correct.
They'd still have to pay for damage or something if the animal caused damage, but you can't charge extra.
Yes, that is absolutely true. And the thing is like, you also have to know whether or not. So like they talk about service animals don't have to be, quote unquote, professionally trained. Like you can train your own service dog. So you don't have to go through a professional program, but it does have to have been trained in advance. Like you can't be like, oh, I'm in the position of working with my dog right now. Like that, like it has to be something that is set up in advance. So here's one of the things, general rules. What questions can a covered entity's employees ask to determine if a dog is a service animal? So in situations where it's not obvious that the dog is a service animal, staff may ask only two specific questions. 1, is the dog a service animal required because of a disability?
Okay.
And 2, what work or task has the dog been trained to perform?
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Staff are not allowed to request any documentation for the dog, require that the dog demonstrate its task, or inquire about the nature of the person's disability. So it stays within HIPAA within that context.
Pretty tight guardrails on
it.
It
is tight guardrails, but if you only have those 3 questions and you have that in a place where your property manager or whoever's helping you with managing a property or yourself, very simple list, really simple list, right?
Yeah.
And they don't require, like, you might come up upon a situation and you're like, well, where's their vest? Dogs are not required to wear specific gear.
No uniform.
To identify them.
Yeah.
Right? They're not required to wear a uniform. Most people don't like wearing uniforms. Why would a dog?
Right.
I'm just
I don't
joking,
blame them.
But yeah, although lots of people put their dogs in outfits.
Right.
So the handler is 100%, behind having to take care of their own animal. There's no transference of someone else being responsible now, right? There's some other questions in here. I'm going to leave it to our listeners that if they need to know this, they can go to the ada.org website to download this document. But some of it gets into what kind of like food places, hotels, public places, that kind of thing. So this is a much more wide ranging, can they go into hospitals and things like that? But for me, I thought it was super important that we at least address this on the show because we've covered so many other areas, right?
Yeah.
And other things are also necessary. City requires dogs to be vaccinated. Does my service animal have to fit into that? Yes,
of course.
they do.
Yeah.
They require them to be registered and licensed in a city. Does this apply to my service animal? Yes, of course. My city requires me to register my dog as a service animal. Is this legal under the ADA? No.
Oh, good to know.
Mandatory registration of service animals is not permissible under the ADA.
Okay.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
So, just says that, as stated, they're subject to the same licensing and vaccination rules that are applied to all dogs. I think if you did require them to be registered as a service animal, then you again might be getting into that HIPAA, issue,
possibly,
right? Because now you're identifying the owner,
right,
as that.
Yeah, good point.
Right. So I think that's a big part of it, and I think it's there's also, like, if you're going to have a service animal in like colleges, local government buildings, things like that, there may be some voluntary registry programs, but they're not a requirement, right? And then can service animals be of any breed of dog? Yes. ADA does not restrict the type of dog breeds that can be service animals. So this is going to be an important thing if you're a property owner, because you're going to want to really understand what you have to contend with. Because I know as a landlord myself, my insurance company won't allow me to have dogs in my rentals. Now, under ADA, I have to make exceptions. But I also know that there are insurance companies that put restrictions on breeds.
Right.
And so again, you're going to want to look into these things for yourself to know exactly the situation so that you don't maybe make the mistake of trying to say no to somebody who has a full legal right. If it's, frequently Dobermans, Germans, Pit Bulls. There's all kinds of breeds that frequently get called out by the insurance companies. Frankly, I think Chihuahuas are the most dangerous. I think those are some of the nastiest. I mean, they're cute. I know friends with Chihuahuas.
I've never been attacked by one. I've had one pee on my shoe.
I have. I've had one draw massive blood out of my hand.
Yeah.
It was one of my girlfriend's dogs, and it just, it was 3-pound Chihuahua, and he did the most damage to me of any animal I've ever been around besides a rabbit. So I'm just saying, landlords, it's worth it. We talk a lot about different other landlord issues here. We're talking about, like on one of our recent shows, we were talking about, the mandatory eviction. What's the other term I'm looking for?
Unlawful taking of property.
Well, it was the unlawful taking, but it was the mandatory eviction stays, the moratorium. Thank you. And, so we talk about all these other things, but other ways that a landlord could find themselves in a bit of hot water.
Well, and always a good advice, no matter what, anytime you're renting your home out, take lots and lots of pictures before and after, so that you have good documentation of everything. I always use a checklist, to go through it as well. And that may be a question to ask also to a prospective tenant if they do have a service animal. Are there certain things that you maybe want to do to prep the home, for having an animal in it, things that might get chewed or damaged.
Right.
Of course, the hardwood floors or things like that.
Oh, I can tell you some dogs in stressful situations, the trim around corners of houses are frequently damaged by dogs who are gnawing either out of boredom or frustration. I know my house has got some trim that's like that right now because my dog was teething, as a puppy, and he was like, "Oh, this tastes great," like this is wonderful, and I'm thinking that's got chemicals in it, but he's not bright enough for that.
Oh well, that's fine.
I'll
attest to that.
He did sneak out on me again the other day.
Did he? Oh, it's not just...
I was out watering the plants, and all of a sudden it was like a little yellow ghost scooted past, like just out of the corner of my eye. I saw him, and he ran down the street. He's got a new buddy, Timon, and so I couldn't get him back with the greenies. He just made a beeline straight for my friend Lisa's house. So, oh well, there you go. So anyway, I just thought that was an important thing for us to do and cover. And we hope everyone learned a little something today on our show, and that many of you will be interested in coming to the class coming up.
There you go. Well, thank you all for listening in on your taking time out of your weekend. Hope that was all worth your time. We're going to be here every Saturday from 2 to 3 o'clock and Sundays from 3 to 4 o'clock, or check out our podcast as well. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Open House with Team Reba. To contact us, visit Team Reba at RE/MAX Metro Eastside on Facebook or email info@teamreba.com. Join us again next Saturday afternoon at 2 for more Open House with Team Reba here on AM 1590. The Answer. The preceding program was sponsored by Team Reba of RE/MAX Metro East Side and Eric Osnes of Homebridge Financial Services.